Never run away. The truth. No one told you about running away from life. You can change your job, your city, your relationships, even your name. You can erase every trace of who you were, start over in a new place. Tell yourself this time it will be different. But there's one thing you can't escape: yourself. No matter how far you go, the person you're trying to leave behind will always arrive before you do. Because running away doesn't begin with movement. It begins with fear. The fear of facing the parts of you that scream for attention, the fear of silence, the fear of truth. And in that fear, most people build an entire life of escape, a life that looks full but feels hollow. The greatest illusion of our time is that distance equals freedom, that a new environment will erase old wounds, that changing direction means changing destiny. But destiny doesn't live in geography. It lives in decisions. The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Yet people keep searching for peace in movement, running from the noise they themselves create. You can move to the ends of the earth, but if your thoughts remain chained, you are still imprisoned. You see, running away is not always physical. It's emotional, psychological, spiritual. You can stay perfectly still and still be escaping. When you distract yourself with screens, with comfort, with endless busyness, that too is running. When you silence your inner voice with noise because you're afraid of what it might say, that too is running. Humanity has built a world where escape is easy and reflection is rare. You don't even need to leave your room to flee from your life anymore. All it takes is one more scroll, one more distraction, one more excuse to avoid what matters. There comes a moment, however, when every runner meets exhaustion, when the miles of avoidance turn into emptiness, when the very things that once numbed you begin to lose their power. That's when you realize you haven't been moving forward. You've been running in circles, the same fears, the same regrets, the same inner battles waiting for you at every finish line. The faces change, the cities change, the years change, but the feeling stays. You think you're chasing freedom, but you're only chasing distance. And distance never heals what you refuse to confront. It's easier to run than to face your reflection. It's easier to start over than to admit you've been avoiding yourself. But ease has never built strength. Ease has never brought peace. Peace is not found in the act of fleeing. It is forged in the act of facing. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself. The one who runs away may appear free, but inside he is enslaved, bound by everything he refuses to meet head-on. The one who stays, who endures, who stands still in the storm, that is the one who learns who he truly is. We live in a generation obsessed with escape. Escape from pressure, from commitment, from discomfort. But life was never meant to be escaped. It was meant to be engaged. Pain is not your enemy. It is your teacher. The challenge you avoid today will become the chain that binds you tomorrow. Every time you run from pain, you give it more power. Every time you hide from truth, it grows in the dark. And soon, it becomes the monster you swore you'd never face. The Stoics understood that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to walk straight into it. So ask yourself, what are you really running from? A person, a failure, a version of yourself you don't want to admit still exists? Whatever it is, it will follow you until you stop, because the only way to end the chase is to turn around. When you finally do, you'll see that the monster behind you is not your enemy. It's your unhealed self, waiting to be acknowledged. The moment you face it, it loses its power. That is where growth begins. That is where true freedom lives. Running away feels like relief, but it is only postponement. Sooner or later, every road leads back to the same place, the confrontation you've been avoiding. The Stoic path isn't about escape. It's about endurance. It's about standing still long enough to see what you've become, to accept it, and to rise from it. So stop running, stop hiding, stop pretending that distance is the answer. Because the only real journey worth taking begins the moment you stop fleeing and decide to face life, as it is, where you are, with everything you've got. People believe that escape brings peace, but peace cannot be found in the direction opposite of truth. When you run, you feel movement, and movement feels like progress. But progress without purpose is just motion, and motion without meaning becomes exhaustion. You can cross oceans, change your surroundings, and rewrite your story, yet still find yourself trapped in the same emotional prison, because the walls are not around you, they are inside you. The Stoics knew that the mind creates its own confinement, and that liberation begins not with travel, but with awareness. Running away works like a sedative. It numbs the pain, but it never heals the wound. The mind tells you, if I just get away, I'll be fine. Yet every time you return to stillness, the ache reappears. Louder, heavier, more insistent, because the problem was never the place. It was always the perspective. Seneca wrote that to change your soul, not your sky, is the path to peace. But we keep switching skies, searching for tranquility in geography instead of mastery of thought. Escape gives the illusion of control. It allows you to avoid the mirror. But what is avoided always expands, and what is suppressed always resurfaces. Every form of avoidance hides behind the promise of relief. People flee into work, into relationships, into entertainment. They drown themselves in distraction to silence the storm inside. Yet in the silence between distractions, the truth waits, patient and unforgiving. That's when you feel the quiet ache of unresolved thoughts, the unhealed pain of choices you refuse to face. The human mind seeks comfort, but comfort without clarity is just another form of captivity. And captivity dressed as freedom is the cruelest prison of all. We tell ourselves that leaving will solve everything, that a new beginning will erase the old chapters. But life doesn't delete. It repeats until you learn. The same lessons appear in new forms, the same emotions find new names, and the same fears wear new faces. You cannot outrun the curriculum of your own soul. The Stoics understood this truth deeply. External change means nothing if the inner self remains the same. A man who runs from discomfort is not free. He is dependent on avoidance to survive. He mistakes escape for evolution. The illusion of escape is powerful because it feels righteous. It makes you believe that leaving a painful situation equals strength. But real strength is not in leaving what hurts. It is in learning why it hurts. Anyone can walk away. Few can stay and face themselves. And every time you walk away without reflection, you carry the weight of unfinished lessons. They cling to you like shadows, following you through every new beginning, until you have the courage to stop and look back. Running becomes addictive because it grants temporary peace. You feel in control, you feel alive, you feel free. But freedom without direction becomes chaos. When you run long enough, you forget what you were running toward. The destination dissolves, and only the running remains. You start living reactively, escaping discomfort rather than pursuing purpose. You no longer live by choice, but by avoidance. And avoidance, when repeated, becomes identity. You begin to see yourself as the runner, the survivor, the one who moves on. But surviving is not the same as living, and movement without meaning is no victory. True peace does not demand escape. It demands endurance. It demands that you sit in the silence long enough to hear what your pain has to say, that you let the discomfort speak, and instead of running, you listen. Because every emotion you avoid is trying to teach you something about who you are and what you still fear. Marcus Aurelius faced this truth daily as emperor, surrounded by chaos, yet anchored in stillness. He could not escape the storms of his empire, so he learned to rule within them. That is the essence of Stoicism. not to run from the fire, but to master your breathing inside it. The illusion of escape fades the moment you understand that stillness is not stagnation, it's strength. To stop running does not mean to surrender, it means to reclaim your power. Because every time you run, you give a piece of yourself to fear. But when you stay, when you endure, when you decide to confront instead of flee, fear loses its dominion. That is when you stop living like a fugitive and start living like a philosopher. There's a strange paradox in running away. The faster you move, the smaller your world becomes. You think you're expanding your life, but in truth you're shrinking your freedom, because every act of escape reinforces the same invisible wall, the belief that peace exists somewhere else. You convince yourself that change equals healing, yet all you're doing is rearranging your suffering. You don't escape the prison, you redecorate it. The Stoics called this illusion the restless mind, a spirit that travels endlessly but never arrives. Modern life glorifies movement. We are taught that stopping means failure, that stillness means weakness. Society worships the runner, the one who's always chasing something new, new goals, new partners, new distractions. But constant movement is not the same as growth. Growth is not measured by how far you travel, but by how deeply you understand where you are. The more you run, the less you reflect. And reflection is where transformation begins. When your days become an endless race for more, you lose the ability to see the why. The body moves, but the soul stands still. Think about how easily we mistake distraction for progress. You can fill your life with noise, yet feel hollow inside. You can climb ladders that lead nowhere, win battles that don't matter, and collect victories that mean nothing. Movement gives the illusion of meaning, but without inner direction, it becomes chaos disguised as purpose. The Stoics understood this well, that the man who doesn't know where he's going will be exhausted long before he arrives. The world praises motion, wisdom praises mastery. The prison of movement is built on one foundation, the fear of silence. Because silence exposes truth. When you stop, when you finally stand still, your mind becomes a mirror. You see the reality you've been avoiding, the choices you regret, the promises you broke, the person you've become. Most people can't bear that reflection, so they keep running. But the silence you fear is not your enemy, it's your invitation. The Stoics taught that stillness is the only way to hear the voice of reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle is the way. The silence is not punishment, it's passage. The truth is, you cannot heal in the same noise that broke you. You can't outrun pain because pain travels at the speed of thought. The body can flee, but the mind stays behind, chained to everything unresolved. That's why the runner never rests. He keeps moving not because he loves the journey, but because he fears what will happen if he stops. He's not running toward freedom. He's running from confrontation. But every escape is a confession. Each mile is proof that you still believe peace lives somewhere outside yourself. You can spend a lifetime escaping, changing your environment, your goals, your identity, but all it takes is one quiet night, one empty room, for the truth to catch up. Because stillness has perfect memory. It waits for you in every city, behind every success, inside every pause. And when it finally finds you, it asks the same question: who are you when the running stops? That question terrifies most because it strips away the illusion of motion as meaning. But to the Stoic, that question is liberation, because once you face it, you realize the truth. You were never chasing life. Life was chasing you. So what is the cure for this endless running? It's not isolation, not withdrawal, not surrender. It's awareness. It's the courage to stop and say, here I am. This is where I'm meant to face myself. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing internally. It means standing firm while everything else moves. That's how you turn motion into mastery. The runner is enslaved by directionless movement. The Stoic is freed by purposeful stillness. The prison of movement dissolves the moment you stop confusing activity with progress. You can have a calendar full of plans and still feel lost. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. You can achieve everything and still not arrive anywhere. But when you stand still with clarity, even a single breath can change everything. The goal is not to stop living, it's to stop running. The destination was never out there, it has always been within. There comes a moment when running no longer works. The road becomes too long, the noise too loud, the excuses too heavy to carry. That is the moment life places a mirror in front of you and whispers, "Look." It's not the reflection of your face that matters. It's the reflection of your truth. Every scar, every regret, every fear you tried to bury stands there in silence, waiting for acknowledgement. You can look away, but the image remains. You can cover it with distractions, but it never disappears. The mirror is patient because it knows the one thing you still refuse to accept. The only enemy you've ever had is the one staring back at you. In this moment of confrontation, there is nowhere left to run. You begin to see that every escape was an avoidance of understanding. Every time you ran from someone, you were really running from something inside yourself. The faces of others only reflected your own unresolved battles. You ran from failure because you tied your worth to success. You ran from rejection because you mistook approval for love. You ran from silence because you feared hearing your own thoughts. The mirror doesn't lie. It shows that your suffering didn't come from life being cruel. It came from you refusing to listen. When you stand before that inner mirror, you realize that running has cost you more than pain ever could. It has cost you presence. You can't be where you are because your mind is always somewhere else. You chase the next thing, the next distraction, the next escape, thinking it will save you. But every chase deepens the wound. The mirror moment shatters that illusion. It forces you to confront the truth that healing only begins when excuses end. You can't evolve while hiding. You can't grow while escaping. You can't build peace while denying what breaks you. The Stoics faced this mirror daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not to impress others, but to confront himself. Every page was a dialogue between his flaws and his discipline, his emotions and his reason. He didn't hide from his weakness. He studied it. That is the essence of strength, not perfection, but perception. To know yourself so deeply that nothing the world throws at you can disturb your core. Because once you understand your own mind, no external chaos can control you. The mirror reveals this power, but only to those who dare to look long enough. Most people never reach this point because they turn away too soon. The reflection is uncomfortable, and discomfort demands courage. It is easier to escape into constant action, pretending that movement equals meaning. But when you finally stand still and face yourself, you begin to see clarity in the chaos. The fears that once seemed monstrous shrink under the light of attention. The pain that once felt endless becomes a teacher. The silence that once terrified you becomes peace. The mirror does not punish. It purifies. It doesn't expose you to shame you. It exposes you to free you. In that reflection, you find something else. The part of you that never stopped waiting. The self you abandoned in your hurry to become someone else. It's still there, beneath the noise, beneath the layers of running and pretending. It doesn't demand perfection. It only asks for honesty. The Stoic path begins right there, in the raw acknowledgement of who you are without the masks. When you accept that image, not with judgment but with discipline, you begin to transform. Because true power is not in hiding your flaws, but mastering them. So when life holds up that mirror again, don't look away. Stand before it with the stillness of a warrior and the humility of a philosopher. See yourself as you are, not as you pretend to be. The world outside is chaos, but the battle is always within. And victory begins the moment you stop running and decide to meet yourself with courage. Only then can the reflection and the reality finally become one. Every person reaches a breaking point, a moment when the walls of escape collapse and the truth stands unmasked. In that stillness, you begin to understand what the Stoics discovered centuries ago. Peace is not the absence of pain, it is the mastery of it. You can run from discomfort for a lifetime, but it will still find you because it is not chasing you to punish, it is chasing you to teach. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, and loss, yet never fled from duty. He ruled not with anger, but with equanimity, because he understood that the battlefield of life was never outside his palace. It was inside his mind. The Stoic revelation begins with one realization. Everything external is temporary. The job, the relationship, the reputation, the applause, they all vanish. What remains is your judgment of them. When you run from circumstances, you surrender your power to them. You become a slave to fortune, drifting wherever emotion or failure pushes you. But when you stand still, when you refuse to react impulsively, you reclaim control. Epictetus, once a slave himself, said that no man is free who is not master of himself. He was chained by circumstance, but liberated by reason. That is the paradox of Stoicism. The less you depend on escape, the freer you become. This philosophy does not ask you to suppress your emotions. It demands that you understand them. Fear, anger, sorrow, they are not enemies, they are messengers. They arrive to show you what still governs you. If a single event can break your peace, it is not the event that holds power. It is your attachment to it. The Stoics taught that nothing external can truly harm you unless you give it permission. The world can take your comfort, but it cannot take your composure. It can break your plans, but not your principles. That is why those who run will always remain prisoners, while those who endure become emperors of themselves. Think of Seneca, exiled and condemned to death by Nero. Even in his final moments, he wrote words of serenity, reminding his students that no man can lose anything if he has found himself. His body was taken, but his freedom remained untouched. That is what modern souls forget, that resilience is not born in pleasure, but in pressure. Every hardship is a forge, every test a teacher. The one who runs from suffering delays his own strength. The one who faces it transforms pain into power. Stoicism turns life's cruelty into discipline, its chaos into clarity, and its storms into strategy. When you adopt this mindset, the world loses its ability to intimidate you. Failure becomes feedback. Betrayal becomes instruction. Loneliness becomes reflection. You begin to see that everything which once felt like an ending was, in truth, an initiation. The Stoic does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asks, "What is this revealing about me?" That question changes everything. It shifts you from victim to student, from fugitive to philosopher. You stop fearing experience and start learning from it. Each hardship becomes another page in your personal meditations. Lessons written in the ink of endurance. This is the truth no one tells you about running away. The further you flee, the further you move from mastery. Pain will always find you, not because life is cruel, but because you are meant to evolve. The Stoics did not pursue comfort. They pursued control over their reactions. That control is not emotionless. It is enlightened. It is the stillness of a mind that sees reality clearly, without distortion. When Marcus Aurelius faced the plague that ravaged Rome, he did not run, he did not curse the gods. He simply wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the Stoic revelation. Strength is not resistance to suffering, it is serenity within it. So when life tests you, when fear whispers that you should run, remember this: your true empire is within. The outer world may shake, but the inner citadel must stand firm. Do not seek escape, seek endurance. Do not crave ease, crave excellence. Every difficulty you face is an invitation to ascend. When you stop running, when you look pain in the eye and say, "Teach me," that is when you become unbreakable. Because nothing can defeat the one who no longer flees from life, the one who has learned to stand still, calm and certain, even in the storm. There comes a point when motion becomes meaningless, when every escape feels identical, when exhaustion becomes your only companion. That is when stillness calls, quietly, patiently, like a whisper beneath the noise of your restless mind. It doesn't demand attention, it invites awareness. It tells you stop running, not because you are weak, but because you've already run far enough to realize that the finish line was never ahead of you. It was within you all along. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the mastery of it. It is choosing to stand where you are and see the world as it is, not as fear paints it. Stillness is the most radical act in a world addicted to motion. It is rebellion against chaos. It is clarity in the middle of noise. The Stoics called it ataraxia, a tranquil state of the soul, untouched by external storms. It's not laziness or indifference, it's power under control, fire mastered by reason. When Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, he was describing this discipline, because the mind that cannot be still will never be free. A restless mind is a captive one, running, reacting, consuming, but never choosing. Stillness gives birth to choice, and choice gives birth to strength. To embrace stillness is to confront the addiction to distraction. It means allowing silence to reveal the things you've been avoiding, your fears, your regrets, your desires. Most people mistake stillness for emptiness, but it's the opposite. In stillness, you meet everything that's real. You hear the voice you've buried under years of noise. You rediscover the simplicity of your own existence. Stillness doesn't change your life externally. It transforms how you live internally. It turns chaos into contemplation, reaction into reflection, panic into presence. That's why so many run from it. Because in stillness, every lie you tell yourself loses power. But the Stoic doesn't fear silence, he seeks it. Marcus found it on battlefields, Epictetus found it in chains, Seneca found it facing death. They knew that the world will always rage, but the mind need not. Stillness isn't about escaping storms, it's about learning to anchor within them. The calm you seek will never appear when the noise around you stops. It appears when the noise within you does. That's the lesson the runner refuses to learn. You can flee from cities, people, and memories, but not from the mind that interprets them. Until you make peace with your thoughts, no place will feel safe. The modern world teaches you to chase every feeling, every desire, every opportunity, as if fulfillment were a race. But chasing is a form of fear disguised as ambition. When you stop chasing, you begin to attract clarity. The Stoic doesn't waste time running toward happiness. He builds the character that sustains it. Stillness gives him that foundation. It turns reaction into reflection and reflection into wisdom. The one who can pause in the face of provocation, who can breathe in the heat of emotion, who can see without judgment, that is the one who possesses real power. Stillness is not a destination, it's a decision. A choice you must make again and again in a world that profits from your distraction. To stop running does not mean to give up. It means to take command. It means to stop letting emotions drive your life and start letting principles guide it. You begin to live by design instead of by impulse. In stillness, every challenge becomes an opportunity to practice virtue. Every setback becomes a stage for resilience. Every fear becomes a doorway to deeper courage. This is how the Stoic lives, not waiting for calm seas, but learning to steer the ship through the storm. So sit in silence. Let it feel uncomfortable. Let the noise of your mind echo until it fades. Let your breath become your anchor, your thoughts become your teachers. Do not seek to escape this moment. It is the only one that exists. When you master stillness, the world no longer dictates your peace. You do. And when you reach that point, running no longer tempts you because you understand the truth. Peace was never something to chase. It was something to remember. There is a moment when words fall silent, when thought meets truth and all resistance ends. That is the moment the emperor within awakens, not the ruler of nations, but the ruler of self. The Stoics called this mastery the inner citadel, a fortress that cannot be breached by chaos, temptation, or fear. It is built not through escape, but through endurance. It is shaped not by ease, but by effort. The voice that rises within it is calm, measured, and unyielding. The voice of wisdom that whispers when the world screams. It says, you do not need to run anymore. Stand where you are, and you will see that the universe is not against you. It is within you. The emperor's voice is not loud. It doesn't beg for attention. It commands through silence, through presence. Marcus Aurelius carried that voice into every battle, every betrayal, every night of doubt. He understood that true leadership, of others or of self, comes from calm authority, not emotional reaction. The Stoic emperor does not seek to control the world, he seeks to control his mind. He does not ask the universe to be kind, he asks himself to be strong. When you master this discipline, you become untouchable. Not because you avoid pain, but because pain loses its power over you. Imagine living with that kind of strength, where nothing external can move you without your consent, where anger visits but never stays, where fear whispers but never commands. That is what it means to embody Stoicism, to rule over the kingdom of thought. When Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he was not giving advice. He was revealing the secret to freedom. Every time you react without reason, you hand over your crown. Every time you stand still with awareness, you take it back. The empire of the self is not inherited. It is earned through daily discipline, through conscious choice, through endurance in the face of chaos. The emperor's voice reminds you that every hardship is an invitation to rule. When someone disrespects you, it's not a reason to flee, it's a test of composure. When failure visits, it's not a sign to give up. It's a measure of resilience. When fear grows loud, it's not an enemy. It's a call to act with courage. Stoicism is not about detachment from life. It's about engagement without chaos. It's not about indifference. It's about discernment. The emperor within knows that control is not dominance, it's direction. To lead your thoughts where you want them to go, instead of being dragged by where they want to take you. When you run from life, you serve your emotions. When you face life, your emotions serve you. That is the difference between the fugitive and the philosopher, between the crowd and the emperor. Most people let their thoughts lead them into chaos. The Stoic commands his thoughts to create order. That is why running away is an illusion. It replaces one form of chaos with another. The true escape is not outward, it's upward into the higher mind that watches, understands, and governs. So listen closely. That calm voice within you is not weakness. It's the ruler awakening. It doesn't tell you to fight everything. It tells you to master yourself first. It doesn't shout over the storm. It speaks through it. When the emperor's voice becomes your guide, you stop asking, when will things get easier? And start asking, how can I become stronger? You stop chasing peace and start creating it. You stop running from life and begin ruling within it. If you are tired of fleeing, if your spirit feels worn from the chase, hear this truth. You were never meant to escape life. You were meant to embody it with discipline, with reason, with courage. The world outside may remain wild, unpredictable, and unjust, but within you there can be order, calm, and strength. That is where the empire stands. Build it brick by brick, thought by thought, moment by moment. Rule it wisely. And as the Stoic emperor, look upon the chaos and say to yourself, this is my realm. These are my trials. I do not run from them. I reign through them. When the running ends, silence arrives like a storm that no longer rages, only breathes. You feel the weight of all the roads you've traveled, the faces you've left behind, the excuses you've repeated. And for the first time, you understand that none of it was wasted. Every mile of escape, every sleepless night, every failure that pushed you forward, all of it was guiding you to this truth. There is nowhere left to go. You are already where you were meant to be. Because the purpose of running was never to reach another place. It was to exhaust every illusion until stillness became the only truth left standing. The end of the chase is not defeat. It is awakening. You begin to see that freedom isn't the ability to move anywhere, but the ability to remain anywhere and still feel complete. You realize that the world doesn't need to change for you to find peace. Your perception does. The Stoics called this eudaimonia, a state where the soul lives in harmony with reason, where virtue replaces impulse, and where acceptance replaces resistance. This is not resignation, it's revelation. You stop begging life to be easy because you finally understand that difficulty was your greatest teacher. When you stop running, you meet yourself again, not the version that others demanded, but the one that's been waiting beneath all the noise. That self is quiet, strong, and unafraid. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to be liked. It doesn't need to win. It only needs to act with virtue, to live with intention, to respond with discipline. This is the state Marcus Aurelius wrote about when he said, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." You don't need to chase meaning. You need to uncover it, layer by layer, through awareness and endurance. The end of the chase also means the end of illusion. You no longer believe that running will save you, that success will fix you, that someone else will complete you. You begin to see that every escape was a way of delaying truth. But once truth becomes your companion, you no longer fear reality. You no longer resist pain because you know it refines you. You no longer fear loss because you've learned that nothing external defines you. You no longer crave escape because you understand that every moment, even the hard ones, is a chance to practice mastery. The Stoic doesn't chase happiness. He builds it in the ruins of chaos. At the end of the chase, you become immovable. Not because you've hardened, but because you've harmonized. You no longer need to flee from emotion. You understand it. You no longer run from failure. You welcome it as a forge. You no longer avoid solitude. You turn it into strength. You live each day not seeking escape, but expression. The expression of virtue, clarity, and peace. You begin to live as Marcus did, not as a man avoiding storms, but as one who carries calm through them. And that calm becomes contagious, a quiet authority that guides others who are still running blind. So this is where it ends, not in distance, but in depth. You are not a fugitive anymore. You are the witness of your own becoming. You are not a wanderer lost in noise. You are a philosopher rooted in silence. The Stoic revelation is complete when you can stand in the same place where you once felt trapped and feel nothing but freedom. Because freedom was never about leaving. It was about returning wiser, calmer, whole. If you're still running, let this be the moment you stop. Sit in your silence, listen to your breath, watch your thoughts pass like clouds and realize that you are not the storm, you are the sky. The chase ends the moment you remember who you are. Now share your voice. Tell the world what you've stopped running from. Tell it that you no longer flee, you face. That you no longer seek escape, you seek mastery. And if this message found you at the right time, leave your mark below. Because the world doesn't need more people running. It needs more who have the courage to stay. The Stoic path was never about escape. It was about endurance. So walk forward now, not as a fugitive, but as a philosopher. Not as a runner, but as a ruler of self. You have reached the end of the chase and the beginning of command.